In today's episode, I'm talking with Donny Makower, who has been a leader in the digital marketing and brand development field for over 20 years. He co-founded Red Interactive Agency, a premier digital agency, which he ultimately sold. As president of Red, Donny led client services, strategies, operations, new business efforts, and the company's vision. Red's client list includes an impressive array of influential global brands such as Netflix, Samsung, Disney, Under Armour, and Audi. Donny's expertise centers around building organizations, developing brand strategies, and challenging companies to reevaluate their customer experience models. In August of 2018, Donny decided to align his professional endeavors with his passion around plant-based nutrition and cruelty-free eating. Today, we're going to be talking about Radical Superfoods that is 100% plant-based and how he has moved his business efforts into the plant-based vegan market. So get ready, you're in for a great treat.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
Have you ever considered what you're putting in your body and how radical that can be as far as if you're consuming meat, if you're consuming dairy, and what that's doing to your body? On the flip side, have you considered superfoods and what they do to your body? Well, today I'm thrilled to invite my guest expert, Donny Makower. And Donny is actually an expert when it comes to superfoods, but he wasn't always an expert when it came to superfoods. He actually is a marketing expert. He has been involved in business for many, many years. He's a business leader and marketing veteran who realigned his personal and professional goals and ethics with what he now considers an ethical life. He's a vegan, he's a plant-based eater, and he's also a superfood guru. So he's the owner of Radical Superfoods, and that's RDCL Superfoods, and we'll be talking about that. But first, I want to welcome you, Donny, and I'm curious, what made you become a vegan?
Yeah, there were a couple of steps in that process. It started with health. So back when I was in the agency world in sort of marketing and branding, my sister, who I'm very close with, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's okay today. But at the time, it was very scary, and she had surgery to remove the cancer. But she started feeling a pain under her arm, and it had spread to a lymph node. And then she started feeling that pain in her lower spine. It was starting to spread to her spine. And it really put a shockwave through our family. And she, rather than continue with traditional Western treatments, she actually went to a wellness center on the East Coast. And she adopted a pretty strict lifestyle protocol. Where she adopted an all plant-based diet. It wasn't just being vegan. I mean, it was a very nutrient-rich diet, juicing wheatgrass, juicing sprouts, removing sugar, removing junk, removing all animal products. And she followed it very strictly for 2 years. And she, in fact, halted and reversed her condition. And so, and to this day, thankfully, she's doing really well. And she's married with 3 kids and of course, vegan to this day. Now, at that time, that was in 2012, that's what introduced me to the power of food, particularly plant-based food and the ability to kind of heal and nourish the body. And I started reading a lot of books, watching lectures, watching debates on this topic, became very interested in discovering, well, what is the optimal human diet? Because we know there are differences of opinion on what that answer is. But all the evidence was pointing me towards plant-based living. And especially after seeing what happened with my sister. But of course, the evidence just started piling on as I was reading more and researching more. But even with all that information, I became mostly plant-based because I gave myself this little out. Every time you see the paleo doctor, the keto doctor talking to the plant-based doctor, and you go, well, what difference does it make what I have 10% of the time? If I'm in a steakhouse and I get a steak every once in a while, it's fine because 90% of the time I'm plant-based. But that's until a little over 3 years ago when one of the talks that I sort of stumbled into was not about health and wellness. It was about animal agriculture and animal ethics. And that's what opened my eyes to the horrible suffering and cruelty that's involved in getting animal products to our plates and used in clothing and other purposes. That's when I drew the hard line in the sand. I was already standing on the line from a health standpoint. I just stepped over it fully and said I'd really never want to knowingly exploit animals again after seeing the suffering on the other end of it.
And I'm so glad you came across that documentary, because I had a similar experience with myself. I started plant-based eating for health due to inflammation. I was 64 at the time, and I just, it was like the inflammation was getting really out of control and very painful. Daily headaches. I was thinking about this yesterday. I have not had a headache in quite some time. And I didn't want to call myself vegan because vegans were crazy. Vegans were radical. And the more research I did, the more I learned what happened to the animals. And now I proudly call myself an ethical vegan. So what was the documentary that you saw?
It actually, so I did see documentaries, but it was actually a talk. It was just a talk.
Oh, okay.
YouTube. It was just a speaker in front of a classroom and spent the entire time talking about animal ethics. But yeah, I can reference the exact talk was called something like the best speech you'll ever hear, or the most important speech you'll ever hear.
Powerful. We'll put the link below. Definitely.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I've looked at comments about that talk that some people have had, and I think it's impacted many people. I think some people were really rattled by it because the speaker has said things that some people found controversial. And the reality is, when I watched that, just subjectively, it did shake me up. It did. And it opened my eyes to something that I had never thought about. And so it did have an impact on me. I mean, within 24 hours of seeing that talk, I was vegan.
Absolutely.
And because I saw the talk and it wasn't even just enough. I was like, wait, could that all really be true? And so I spent a day researching it. And then once I saw, oh yeah, no, that this is actually real, that's when I had to make a change.
When you said you spent a day, it's interesting because when I first started, I would spend my weekends literally about 20 to 25 hours just in front of YouTube, reading books, whatever I could to really get as much information as possible. And the further I went into it, the more shocked I became. And I actually recently have been going through a forgiveness process for the fact that I used to wear a lot of leather, the ethics of how I bought my cosmetics. Now, when I buy cosmetics, I make sure that they're cruelty-free. And there's so much that we unwrap with this, which really, first of all, congratulations to your sister for reversing her cancer. Yeah. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, or they don't want to accept, is that we can reverse disease. We can take control of our health. And your sister's story is a great example of that. So I'm really glad to hear that. And thank you for sharing that. Now, you moved into your company, RDCL Superfoods, and it's RDCL. We'll make sure that there's a link down below. Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah, so after I left the agency world, I was really committed to finding a way to just aligning my newfound passion for cruelty-free living with where I was going to be spending a lot of my time. And so on a personal level, I put a talk together called The Blind Spot of Compassion. It's essentially a case for vegan living, and it addresses a lot of the common arguments and objections that people have against vegan living, right? Because we know what they are, and there's about 10, 12 ones that people tend to lean into. And so I wanted to be able to speak to them. And so I put a talk together centered around those objections. And I also got involved on the board with an animal sanctuary that has 3 locations around the country that rescues animals. And so that was all like dedicating personal time to it. And I wanted also professionally to be able to take that passion and apply it to something that was particularly meaningful to me. And since I became so interested in food and nutrition and spent so much time researching it, and knew that most people need to incorporate more plant-based foods into their diet, whether or not they're vegan. Most people aren't eating very well, and people need to eat healthier, and people want to eat healthier. They just want tasty foods that are easy to incorporate into their daily routine. And so it all started with that principle, and then it's evolved into the company that we have today, and we still have a long way to go in front of us.
Well, what I love about the industry is how many startups there are and how quickly it's evolving, and how many people are coming on board to at least try a portion of their meals as vegan-based meals, and then the superfoods. And I've recently discovered the whole art of sprouting. I haven't done it yet, and so that's a new area that I'm going to get involved with. But I like the idea of superfoods. So tell us about your particular product, what it is, and why it's so unique to other superfoods, and why people would benefit from trying it.
Yeah, well, we have a pipeline of multiple products that are in development, but obviously they don't all get released at once. And so we released two, and then we released a third. So right now we have three products totally in the market. The first two we developed after COVID hit, because we, like many companies and many individuals, hit a big pause button when COVID hit. It's like, wait, what's happening? What's happening in the marketplace? What's happening with consumers? What do people need right now? And so we did some social listening and some exploration, and we realized that top needs that people have were around hydration. One, people weren't drinking enough water. Also, people are quite bored by water oftentimes, just plain water. I drink a lot of plain water, and I'm an advocate for water, but sometimes you want something more than water. And so we said, all right, well, what if we can make a hydration drink that's functional and sort of grounded in these amazing superfoods that will bring benefits to people that go well beyond just plain water. So I have a little show and tell here because I brought these two products. These are called Radical Elements, and they have a line on the package that says upgrade your water. And that's really what we think of it as, is you take a scoop of it, you add it to a water bottle, like a reusable water bottle like this. I'm just sipping this stuff throughout the day. So I just shake it up in my water bottle. It's very easy. But they have organic coconut water in there for added hydration. They're functional. So we use various botanicals and food-based ingredients for an immunity boost, let's say, that both of these contain. That's vitamin C, a vegan vitamin D3, and zinc. Or we have a focused energy blend, which has like caffeine from organic guarana, or L-theanine from organic green tea, and rhodiola. So these are things that give you cognitive support and energy. The point is, we have these botanicals that we incorporate into these, along with antioxidant superfruit like maki berry and dragon fruit and passion fruit. And that in combination, they're tasty, they're easy, and they give you a lot of different benefits.
Well, let me ask you this. I went on a 3-mile run this morning near the river with my dog, and I like to hydrate before and after. What would be the formula for success by me using Radical Superfoods, the powder in my drink? Would I drink it before? Would I drink it during? Would I drink it after? Or all of the above?
The funny thing is, you could do it all of the above, but I'll give you a more honed in recommendation based on the two products. I would tell you that before and during, you would drink this one, because this one has the focused energy blend. So you want that lift in energy and focus before the workout and while you're doing the workout. Afterwards, I would switch to this one, because this one has more of a calming, we call it a stress support.
Oh, okay.
Really calming. And so this one has magnesium with 72 trace minerals and L-theanine. So this one just almost takes the edge off. It won't make you tired. But sometimes it even helps people sleep better, because a lot of times the reason people don't sleep well is because they have an active mind and they're worried, they're stressed. And so, but it's just this one's calming, this one's energizing. So
and when you say this one, let me stop you there. When you say this one, there's people that will be listening to this rather than watching. So what is the name of this one and then this one?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So both hydration drinks are called Radical Elements. And when I say this one on the focused energy blend, it's a yellow packaging, and it's the passion fruit flavor. And when I say flavor, there's actually organic passion fruit in here, but I'll just refer to them as flavors, right? So the passion fruit version is the one with the energy blend. And then the other version is a purple package, purple and white, which has, we call it dragon fruit superberry, because it has dragon fruit, maki berry, and acerola berry. And this is the one that's the more calming blend that provides stress support. They both have an immunity boost. So they share that in common, and they both have organic coconut water. It's just the superfruit and the botanical blends change based on the functions.
So Donny, I know that you are really encouraging people to try the superfoods that you have. And I know you've got a special gift for my listeners and my viewers. What is it?
Well, I just wanted to pass along a discount code. It's always good to get a little bit of money off when you're trying a new product. So we have an active discount code, which is Get Radical. So it's all one word, just GET, and then RDCL. So Get Radical, and that would take 20% off of someone's entire first order.
Excellent. Excellent. And I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage. You're listening to Vegan Visibility, or you might be watching Vegan Visibility. Go ahead and like this program and give us a thumbs up, leave a review. And I'm talking with Donny Makower from RDCL Superfoods. And that's Radical is RDCL Superfoods. And now, one of the things that I'm really wanting to focus on with this show is for those people who have been very successful in marketing their businesses. You started during the pandemic and you're out there crushing it. You're doing a great job and your background is in marketing. What can you advise to people in the vegan and plant-based space that they can do to really amplify their marketing and yet not spend a fortune doing so, but really be targeted? And when I say spend a fortune, what I mean is get a high return on investment, because you have to invest in your marketing. And yet, if you're not strategic about it, you're wasting your money. If you're strategic, for every dollar you invest, you can get 2, 3, 4 back. So it's really looking at where are you investing your marketing time and dollars. So what would you recommend on that, Donny?
Yeah, I have a 2-part answer. The second part, which will actually segue into the third product, because it's part of what inspired the third product. It's funny that you say that we're crushing it. We're really proud of where we are in the products that we've released. But right now, in actuality, we're just doing what we refer to as marketing testing, right? And this is what I would always advise to people, because what you don't want to do is overspend too early on marketing that ultimately may not return. So what you want to do is test various messages and creative ads, or you're going to hit different what's referred to as traction channels to see where you can get traction and where you get people interested and ultimately converting and buying the products. And so you look at Facebook and Instagram and other social platforms. You might look on Amazon or other third-party platforms. You could look at influencer marketing. There's a lot of different ways of reaching people, and you want to experiment by spending small amounts of money across those different channels with different messages, doing some testing, and then you can lean in more where you see interest, engagement, and conversion. So that's sort of part one, is just start slow if you can so that you can measure and test and not step on too big a landmine by spending too much too early. The other thing is, we tried to develop products that we think would be really meaningful to people and as disruptive as possible in what is a crowded marketplace. This plant-based superfood space, we are not the first people to engage in this space. It's crowded. And so that you want to apply that some filters to your thinking and your process to bring products or services to the marketplace that really fill a void, or take a category and flip it on its head a little bit so that you have something different that you can offer people. That is how we developed what we call Super Cocoa. This is the third product. And this can be made hot or cold. We mostly position it as making it as like a new version of hot chocolate. But the reality is you could take this product and make it cold and it's delicious. And inside this box, you get a dozen of these. These are like single serve packages that you rip open and you add it to hot plant-based milk or hot water, or like I say, you could shake it up with ice too and make it ice cold. But this hot chocolate mostly contains sugar and maybe some cocoa, but a bunch of flavors, and it's just not a health food at all. And we've seen some that try to be superfoody and slap a superfood label, but maybe it doesn't go far enough in our view. And so we made a hot chocolate that has organic kale, broccoli, spinach, cauliflower, beet, carrot, 6 grams of organic pea protein. I mean, we have 7 different superfruit like elderberry and blueberry and strawberry, and ancient grains and seeds like quinoa and chia seeds and gluten-free oats. The whole thing is gluten-free. There's no added sugar. So there's only 1 gram of sugar that's naturally occurring from the ingredients that are in there. And you could give this to a kid and they'll just lick it up like they're having a chocolate drink, again, hot or cold, however they like it. But as a parent giving it to your kid, that you're giving them essentially a salad in their hot chocolate. Even better. I mean, most kids' salads don't have kale and broccoli and things like that. So that to us is a really unique take on this category. And I use that as an example broadly for marketing, because you want to be able to stand out in a crowded market.
Right. Well, I love the whole idea of getting kids to eat more plants, and in a really fun way. And a thought that occurred to me as we approach summer is, what if somebody were to make the hot cocoa, but make it cold, freeze it, and make popsicles out of it?
Oh, it's amazing.
Wow. And
it's great that way.
Yeah. And there's so much going on with children these days. The obesity rate in kids has gone up, the onset of adult diabetes in kids, and something has to be done. And what you're doing is you're being proactive in helping parents to do something really healthy for their kids. So what are some foundational type marketing strategies that companies can use, in addition to what you said about testing, which I love hearing that, because right now we're doing some digital marketing advertising, and we're starting very small, and we're testing, we're tweaking, and I've got a great team member who's doing that. So good to know I'm doing that right. And looking at the turning the market upside down. That's what I'm hoping to do with this show, bringing people like yourself on. So what are some other strategies as far as, let's say, collaboration with other companies, sponsorships, things of that nature?
Yeah, I love collaboration with other companies. We're actually, doing a contest with another company on Instagram this week. So I think it's great to find non-competitive but mission-aligned companies that you can collaborate with, and all boats rise with co-promotions. So I think that's a great idea. I would always advocate for that, to do that where possible. And, I think finding people who really love your brand and can be a brand ambassador for you and sort of share that organically. And that's something also that we engage in conversations with people. We want people to love it. And if you already love it, then it's not like an advertisement, or they're not trying to sell something on your behalf. They're really just sharing with other people what they genuinely think is a good product or a good company. And so that provides exponential value. And again, we're at the early stages of that, but that's where we're putting a lot of our attention.
Awesome. And I want to remind people, this is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility. I'm talking with Donny Makower, and he's with Radical Superfoods, and that's RDCL Superfoods. And Donny, how do people get in touch with you?
I mean, if people want to get in touch with me personally, from a social platform standpoint, I always encourage LinkedIn. That is the one that I'm most personally engaged with. And any message that comes to me through LinkedIn, it will kick over to my email. So that's a really great way to find me, because it's just my name.
And what about your web address? Go ahead and give that.
For the company, our website is it's radicalsuperfoods.com. So it's RDCL Superfoods.com. And just to explain why we use RDCL, there's two versions of the word radical. There's RADICAL, which is the most common use. Which is like, make radical improvements to your health and well-being without the need to make radical changes to your lifestyle or to your behavior, right? So we love this word radical, get radical, right? But there's also a radical, which is RADICLE. And that's like the initial seed that germinates and sprouts, is like, that is a radical. It's like the beginning of growth of a plant. And so we really love this double use of the word radical. So we just pulled out the root letters from both versions of the word. And that's what formed our company name.
I love that. And we'll make sure to put your web address in the show notes so that people can easily find you. And where do you see the marketplace going? Where do you see the industry going and people's health as a result of plant-based eating?
Yeah, well, I can tell you part of our more long-term vision that we haven't rolled out at this point, but is definitely part of our roadmap, is tied to more personalization and understanding what each individual needs that's unique to them, so that we could provide products and recommendations, protocols, tips that are, again, personalized to their specific needs, goals, lifestyle choices, preferences. So if I know, for example, that you don't sleep well and that you're tired during the day, well, I should be recommending products for you that will give you some energy during the day and maybe help you sleep better at night. because that will have a big impact. And then if you can start to also adapt your day-to-day behavior and develop some healthy habits around those areas, now you're making exponential improvements. You're not just taking a product to help it, which is great, but you're maybe making little adjustments to your lifestyle. And in combination, that can be really strong. And so if we want to have the biggest impact on people's wellness and kind of optimize their well-being, so to speak, that is a good place to start to focus. And so that's where we're headed.
Excellent. Excellent. And you shared some strategies for companies that want to get visibility. Now let's talk about lifestyle changes, like with your sister, when she was diagnosed with breast cancer and she was able to very successfully reverse it and is living a healthy life with children now. You have gone vegan. For people who are sitting on the fence and they know they need to make a change, like when I made the change, I knew I needed to. I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I've been a yo-yo dieter all my life. I had terrible inflammation, daily headaches. I look at all the different things that were going on and it's like, what's wrong with this picture? Let's make a change. So there are simple strategies for people to implement. What would you say are 3 very simple things that people can do to start moving in the direction of really taking control of their health through a plant-based lifestyle?
Okay, well, first is having a deeper understanding about why they're doing it. And I think that it is important to understand the health benefits because I think that will get people to move. But what's interesting about the animal argument that I know really impacted the two of us is I want people to think more deeply about that. We in our culture have arbitrarily created 3 categories of animals. We say some animals are pets and we'll treat them as family members and love them like our own. Another category is wildlife, like elephants or dolphins or giraffes that we'll revere in their natural surroundings and respect them. And we certainly don't want to hurt them, at least most people don't. And then the third category is livestock, poultry, and seafood. And this is the category of animals that while they can suffer just as much and feel just as much, we treat them as faceless units of production that have no moral value whatsoever. And most people, if we polled people on the street and said, do you love animals? 99% of people will say yes. And if we say, do you advocate for animal cruelty? 99% of people will say no, but their day-to-day behavior runs completely counter to that sentiment. And it's really important that cognitive dissonance starts to go away for people because you would never do to a dog what you would do to a cow or a pig or a fish or a chicken. And again, the suffering is the same on the other end of that decision, whether it's a dog or a pig, and you take your pick of these animals. So one thing I really encourage people to do is come to grips with what you're supporting every time you buy an animal-based product and you're demanding with your dollars that they continue to produce those products, as opposed to buying a plant-based version of those foods, which now is supporting the plant-based industry and moving the demand outside of animal agriculture, because each person's dollars makes a big, big difference in the marketplace. Which brings me to point 2, which is one of the easiest pieces of advice I give people is that while you want to eat as many whole plant foods as possible, the easiest thing to do is to just follow the exact same diet you're on now, just swap every food that you have that's animal-based for the plant-based version. So whether you're having yogurt in the morning or you may have cereal with dairy milk or you have a hamburger at lunch or a chicken salad, as well as I do, Kathleen, you could buy a delicious plant-based version of all those foods. So to take out the guesswork of, but how would I do it? No guesswork. Just eat what you eat now. Just move your arm 12 inches to the right or 12 inches to the left in the supermarket and just try buying the plant-based version of that exact same thing. So that is where I tell people to start.
I love that. I love that because it's really a lot easier than people make it out to be. And actually, it's very, very simple. And so, another big argument that we hear is, eating plant-based and vegan is so expensive. And it's like, no, it really isn't. When you look at batching, for example, and doing foods that you can buy in bulk. I mean, it's really not that expensive. So, I really appreciate, Donny, what you're doing. You're just making such a difference, and I'm so excited to see what's going to be happening with your radical superfoods because you're putting into the market things that will truly make a difference in people's health. And in closing, what are your final thoughts for people as you move forward in your business, in your commitment, in your alignment, and what they can do to really become healthier human beings in mind, body, and spirit?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're on a mission to really help people live a healthier lifestyle and to enjoy the foods that they're eating. And I do think people should make conscious decisions about what foods they're buying. Again, it matters what they buy. It has a very significant impact. Each individual choice matters. And I think for people to just get in touch with the implications of those choices and to understand that there is suffering at the other end of it, to understand that there are environmental implications as well. I mean, we didn't spend any time talking about the environment, but the reality is animal agriculture has such a big impact on the environment, such a big impact on people's health, and such a big impact on the animals themselves, that any one of those three arguments should be enough to make someone adopt a plant-based lifestyle, a vegan lifestyle.
Well, let me say,
it's overwhelming.
Let me say, it's my show, so we can go longer if I want to. So we're going longer, and let's talk about the environment. And, that's what I love about having a podcast is like we make the rules, and it's the same with our health. We really do make the rules if we choose to. So let's talk about the environment. What's your recommendation for people to look at to take responsibility? Because a lot of people say, well, I'm just one person. How can I make a difference? Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that first. I think it's easier to see it when you think of it in terms of animals and health and marketplace demand before we get to the environment. So we're going to get to the environment in a moment, but you bring up a very good point, because I do think people go, look, even if I became vegan tomorrow, I'm going to walk through a food court or I'm going to go to a barbecue at a friend's house and everyone's going to be eating meat. What difference do I make as one person? An example that I often use is that when I grew up, there were 4 types of milk in the supermarket. Maybe there were more that we never noticed, but I don't think so. There was like skim milk and 2% and whole and chocolate, and they all originated with a cow. And today we have how many different variations of plant-based milks, whether it's cashew milk, soy milk, oat milk, pea milk. I mean, there's so many different kinds. Why? It's because people are demanding it. People are moving their dollars and buying those plant-based milks, which causes the industry to respond in kind and produce more of them and create more variety. In the aggregate, it is just making such a significant difference because you vote with your dollars 3 times a day and you have a choice about where those dollars go. So what I like about that example is it makes people realize, wait, I do matter as an individual. And by the way, you matter as it relates to the animals' lives and their suffering. I've seen statistics, and it's hard to know exactly which number is accurate, but roughly someone who's vegan, I think, saves between 200 and 300 animals a year just by being vegan. I've seen a stat that says you save about 1 animal a day. I've seen one that say you save about 200 animals a year. But it's a really big impact. You're definitely saving animals. And I think people want to know that they're saving animals. Imagine even if you save 1 animal every other day. That alone should get somebody to move. Now, the environmental impact is the reality is animal agriculture has just such a significant detrimental impact, not just on climate change, but we're talking about on like habitat destruction, acidification of the oceans, deforestation, water use and resource use. And people might think, and the list goes on, by the way. I mean, species extinction, greenhouse gases, yes. And so people might think, yeah, but again, that feels so untouchable. Like I can't notice that if I make these changes. But we need people to make changes on an individual basis. Otherwise, our planet is just going to continue to move in the wrong direction. We have to lead by example.
Well, and what I also know to be true is when we consume animal products, we're putting their energy into our body. We're putting their fear, their anxiety, their suffering. And you can't separate the two. I just finished Dr. Will Tuttle's book, The World Peace Diet, which is phenomenal and really goes into a lot of detail on that. And it really is about having a conscious way of living and loving ourselves enough to love the environment, the animals, and just the foods that we consume. And I want to remind people that I'm talking with Donny Makower from RDCL Superfoods, and this is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility. And again, I want to ask you that question. What are your final thoughts for people? What can you leave people with to encourage them to at least consider a different way of living through a more humane way to consume food?
Yeah, I think people should I think everybody should start to make change immediately, right? And I realize that not everyone listening to this is going to say, you know what, I agree with what he just said, I'm vegan, I'm vegan. I want that to be the case, but I know that realistically, sometimes people need a moment of transition to get there. But I think you have to start taking those steps. And the thing I want people to realize is, we don't need to eat any animal products to live or to be healthy or to thrive. None. In fact, we know that we're healthier by not eating animal products, right? That is what the evidence, all the scientific and medical evidence shows us, that we're healthier by not eating any animal product. That includes dairy and eggs, which for those listening that aren't familiar, there's horrible cruelty in dairy and eggs too. So don't be fooled by the fact that it seems like you're not eating an actual animal, you're eating a product that comes from an animal. If we went into what happens in those industries, your listeners would be horrified, right? And so the question is, if we don't need to eat animals to survive or be healthy, and we know that animals don't want to die, it's obvious from their behavior. They don't want to die. They try to avoid pain. They try to avoid suffering. We know they want to be with families and friends, and we see how animals live in nature. So how do you justify killing an animal that doesn't want to die if we don't have to? Just because we had to at certain points in human history because we lived out in the open and, thousands of years ago, that's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about today. How do you justify doing that today? And when people can come to that realization, I think it gets people to move and start to make change. And no one would justify doing a little bit of it when they really acknowledge that it is a horrible injustice. Again, sub in any other social injustice and say, I'll just do it a little bit. And say, well, what if I just ate animals 3 times a week? Okay, what if I said, I know it's horrible to abuse children. We are not advocates for child abuse. We are against it. So I'm only going to abuse my children once a week. You would think I'm crazy, right? You could say that with anything, right? I'm just going to be X once a week or do X if it's an injustice and we know it's wrong. So this is what it comes to. Once you acknowledge that it's not right and we don't need to do it, we should just stop. And if you need to transition to that, just try to do that as quickly as possible, but start to experiment with plant-based living.
I love that. And I recommend that if people really do want to learn what goes on in the dairy industry, short 5-minute video. It's called Dairy is Scary. Dairy is Scary. We'll put the link below. Yeah. And I've been talking with Donny Makower from RDCL Superfoods. That's RDCL Superfoods. Donny, this has been delightful. I'm just so thrilled that you've joined me in sharing your information with the community. And I wish you much success and keep doing what you're doing because you're a great voice for the voiceless. Thank you so much. This is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.